I know the Bills want their alignment. They want everyone to be aligned. And Joe Brady does not have to take any advice from me other than draft a receiver. But he did utter the same thing that the Bills keep saying. And I heard you on this yesterday too, where they say, when you pay your quarterback a lot of money.
Yeah.
Stop saying that. Stop saying that. The number one reason for Joe Brady to stop saying it is because Bean says it a lot, and he should stop saying it too. Brady, when he says pretty much anything that Bean says directly, Brady's got this reputation that I don't know how long it'll last. It might be gone by like week 2 of training camp. It might be gone by OTAs. The Bills, of course, wanted alignment. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they hired from within the guy that was in the building, and they said it had nothing to do with him being here. In fact, we pretended we didn't know him. And sure, like take that all for what it's worth. Believe all of it. Anytime Brady says exactly what Bean says, he's going to be accused of just being a puppet. Mm-hmm. He's going to be accused of being a yes man. And I don't think Joe Brady has to be that, of course. I think he has his own ideas, his own thoughts. And as soon as he's ready to tell us those thoughts that aren't direct quotes from the GM, and this one especially about how, you're paying your quarterback a lot of money, you got to make sacrifices. Mm-hmm. It just, you sound like you are just saying what you're supposed to say. So,
well, isn't that alignment?
That's alignment.
That's alignment. That's why it's part of the reason I think he probably has this job right now is he's not going to step out of line and say things in the public that go against at all what the GM thinks about the team and the way it should be constructed.
There's a difference between going against and simply not parroting the same line. Mm-hmm. Just don't say the thing where it's your quarterback makes a lot of money. So, of course, like you can't spend any version of that where they kind of, I don't even think they're attempting to lay blame at Allen's feet, but that's what you are doing when you say that. Well, he makes so much money, we can't have nice things, which is, of course, wrong. It's
totally wrong.
Like you pay attention to the league for 5 minutes. Yes, a large contract eats up cap space, but not on any level like you should ever be treating it as if it's a problem. Josh Allen is your best contract. He's at the most important position. He's paid well, but you still get more than you could ever dream of on that investment based on how good he is. And to blame him or his contract to make it sound like it's difficult because of that contract is misguided. That's like the nicest way I could say it. Yeah. Stop saying it. There, end half rant. Stop saying that.
Well, isn't it the only thing they can say without admitting that their roster isn't very good for how much money they spend on it? Because it's their cover for it. They say, well, here's why we don't have an all-star team. It's because, we got Josh Allen. We got to pay him $55 million, not to mention what the cap hit actually is, which is a lot lower than that. And we can't have all these great players around him because we got to pay him. Because if they start saying, well, no, it's not actually that prohibitive from us getting top players around the league at their position, then what's the immediate question back to you? It's, okay, well then how come you don't have them? So now you are willing to admit, no, it's not because of Allen's contract. Well, then where are all these guys? Where are my all-pros? Where are my Pro Bowl guys? Where are my top 100 guys? Where are my guys that are going to make the Hall of Fame someday? Where are any of them? And they aren't here, so this kind of has to, I think, be their excuse because I don't really know what else you would use other than, I just haven't done a good job of bringing them in, which is counter to all the things that we've heard or have been reported about what was done between McDermott and Bean and what Pagula said at the press conference.
But that was only
was a belief that it is a championship roster.
Right, that was only at the end that fraying.
That was at the end.
Ripped apart.
That's right. But if they believe that this roster is good enough, then they must believe. I don't even know if they actually totally believe it or not. Maybe they do. That is truly why they can't do it. They haven't been able to do it.
803-0550.
It's like, what would they think of like how the Eagles do it? The Eagles have a giant quarterback contract too, and they have elite players at every position group.
Well, the Eagles also talk differently. It's one thing that the Eagles do. And talk is, whatever, you can say talk is cheap. The Eagles say you can build for the future and also be good now. I saw the Bears GM say, we have to make a decision, this versus this, treating being good now versus a long-term build. And I think there's only one GM that doesn't treat it like it's one versus the other, and that's Howie Roseman. He openly says, I want to make it very clear we can do both those things. Mm-hmm. Every other GM acts like they're saddled with being good. It's happening in New England. I saw Ben Volin of the Boston Globe wrote a piece about the Patriots saying, just because you made the Super Bowl, careful. Don't go too fast. Don't make a trade to get better. Trust your process. And, man, it is just such the easy way. And for anybody who thinks that we're only doing this with the Bills, who, by the way, are deep into being good, and we're still debating whether or not they should go or just do your normal, eat your vegetables, take your picks, don't be too aggressive. Here the Patriots in year one, they actually have the rookie contract for the quarterback still, which you have that for about 3 to 4 years, and they're acting like they shouldn't go all in. What? Of course the Patriots should go all the way in. Mm-hmm. You have a great quarterback who's paid peanuts. Now's the time to go bonkers and try to win.
Yeah.
It's always the easiest thing. People like to treat it like going big and trading for this player, that player. It's the easy way out. No, the easy way out is just to sit where you are and just take players, take picks, and say, well, hey, we're balancing the cap. It can be tough, I get it, but just stop saying that Josh Allen's the reason that you have to make sacrifices. Anyway, 803-0550 and 1-888-550-2550 to join us. The Combine. And we do have one wide receiver that we know the Bills have met with. Of course, I saw safety and corners as well. We'll get that list as things go along the Combine schedule. Defensive lineman media was Wednesday this week. But today it's when receivers are going to be asked these questions. And running backs and quarterbacks. We'll see. Are they going to consider a running back somewhere? I don't know if that might be in the mix later on.
Yeah, purposes of my bet, it would be nice.
It could be.
That I am destined to lose between your linebacker and my running back.
Yeah, last year Joe and I made a bet. What do they take first, linebacker or running back? And we carried it over into this year because they did not take a linebacker or a running back.
My only backdoor win here would be if they pay some linebacker $10 million in free agency, and then we think, okay, that's it. They're done. Free agent linebacker with Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams, and Joe Andreessen. End. They've got their group. If they did that, then maybe I would think I could still win that, but I'm not very confident. What's the highest they could pick a running back? The 4th round?
Let's hope.
For our own sakes,
yeah,
let's hope it's a 4th.
Calvin in Niagara, Ontario. Hey, Calvin, good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you guys today?
Good.
You guys were talking about Josh Allen and how, it kind of hamstrings the team. It's not necessarily Josh Allen hamstringing the team. He's a great player. He's the best quarterback in the league. You know what I mean? So, but they are going to live and die with him, correct?
Sure.
You can't
to a point.
That.
I mean, to a point, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you do got good players around him. It's what it really comes down to, and I'm just going to bring this up because it's going on right now. Is the draft. Okay, you look at teams around the league in the past few years. I'm gonna bring up the Lions example because that's actually my team. I'm actually from Lansing, Michigan. I'm a Lions fan, but I mean I live around here. I love the Bills. Don't get me wrong. I love football, but. Okay, over the past few years, and you watch Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and those guys in Detroit, and you look at what they've done in the draft, especially the past 5 or 6 years. I mean, they're grabbing all pros every draft. Even in the 4th and 5th round, we're getting guys like Kirby Joseph and Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're picking up Brian Branch, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell. Mm-hmm. And the issue, even Jameson Williams, Aiden Hutchinson, Hutchinson was a first rounder, obviously. Gibbs was a first rounder. But the point is where are the Bills? How come the Bills aren't drafting these guys, even in the later rounds of the first round or the second round? How come we're not talking about where they're drafting at and what they're not getting any of these gems? That's my issue with the Bills. And every year it seems like, how come they just can't hit on one of these 2nd, 3rd, or 4th rounders? Don't get me wrong. I love Buffalo Joe. I like Joe Andreessen. He's a great player.
He also wasn't a draft pick.
So yeah,
right.
Oh, he wasn't.
No.
There
he was
you go.
Just free agent after the fact, yeah.
There you go. See, I thought he was a later rounder. You know, it shows how much I follow the actual Bills every night, but I do. But yeah, no, that's all I wanted to point out. I love listening to you guys every morning on the way to work and on the way to the job and whatnot. And you know, go Bills. Good luck this year. And yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. You got the draft going on and whatnot. And what are you guys actually looking for? What are you guys looking for in the draft? What would you say is your number one thing?
Well, Calvin, we're streaming on YouTube, and I've got a board with names ready to go on it called the Wide Receiver Big Board for a third consecutive season.
The Lions are an interesting comp because they are not the team that I think of for taking big swings in their off seasons on veterans, but I think part of that is what you laid out. They haven't really needed to because they have landed on so many of these players that I've been talking about for the Bills. Great players, blue chip players in the draft, that they have enough of those guys that they don't really need to go get Trey Hendrickson, I guess. Like they probably could. Aiden Hutchinson is a top of the league player at his position. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the same thing. Penei Sewell is the same thing. You mentioned Kirby Joseph. Like, there's a list of those guys in Detroit. They also have a contract in Jared Goff that is the same as Josh Allen's. You know what he makes a year? $55 million. Exact same amount that Josh Allen does. So any thought that like they couldn't keep Hutchinson or St. Brown or pay these guys, those guys are making more than the Bills' second, third guys, right? Like we talked last week about how Dawkins is second at what, $20 million per year?
Yep.
And Hutchinson's is at 30, and St. Brown's at 28, and Aleem McNeil is at 24, and Penei Sewell is above 20. Like they have all these guys that are there or above. And they also have the quarterback contract that the Bills do at $55 million.
This is where someone would say, well, they're also going in the wrong direction, but
like last year they were.
But they're not. Yeah. They're not buoyed by Josh Allen's existence. They have, like every other team that has a big quarterback contract might rather have Josh because he's better than most of them.
They've also, in the time that it's been Goff for them and Allen for the Bills, they've gone as far as the Bills have.
Right.
They've gone to their conference championship game. And we all know, I think, that Josh Allen is a way more talented quarterback than Jared Goff is.
803-0550. The point about, like, the draft, and, yeah, the draft's one way to do it, or free agency, or trades. Well, if you're looking at the best Bills players of the last, of the entire Bean McDermott era, the best players they've ever had, Allen's 1, draft. Who's 2?
Diggs.
Trade. Who's 3? The third best player they've had,
Micah Hyde.
Okay. Free agency.
Free agent.
If they
Poyer's free agency too, by the way.
Yeah. Like GMs love to talk draft and develop, and that's fine. You do need to draft well. It really helps to draft well. It's how you keep your contracts down with good talent. Like Seattle has had a really good run of first and second round picks. But Seattle and New England this year, again, New England's not the best team. What did New England do? They spent a ton of money in free agency. They went out and got Milton Williams. Paid him a lot of money. How was he? Great. So,
yeah.
Sometimes I used to push back on this idea, even back like during the drought bills, where, well, they have the lowest number of drafted players on their roster. Like, well, that's only one measuring stick. That's not the end-all, be-all. And when you win the Super Bowl, sure, there are going to be important draft picks. There are also going to be important free agents and maybe important players that you acquired via trade. How you build it, does it matter? I mean, it's part of your story, but you could build a team full of just free agents. Chances are you're not getting a lot of great deals. It's harder to get a steal in free agency than it is a steal in the draft. Michael Hoyt might be a really nice signing for the Bills. I mean, if he's one of their top 4 players on defense, does anybody care they didn't draft him? Like, he looks like a nice player. So
yeah, no, I wouldn't.
I'm good about that. They could have they could have Michael Hoyt, Ed Oliver, and then the third best defensive player. Who's that going to be? Somebody they trade for? Maybe. You know? So,
that's what I mean, though. Like,
I don't want to fall in love with, like, you have to draft well. It has to take time. The segment kind of opened up with Bean talking about how they hit the proverbial playoff wall, in the words of Terry Pagula. Like, okay, if you made a coaching change to break through the wall, then the roster must also break through the wall.
Right. And that's where, like, even the guys you mentioned, Hoyt, Oliver, like Hoyt, I like him. Nice player. And it looked like it was going to be going really well. He is also a guy that makes third-tier money at his position,
Right. So that's,
and has been in the league for 5 years and has never had more than 6 sacks in a season. Like, I'm not saying I don't like the player. I do. But who are we talking about here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not Myles Garrett. This is not the Max Crosby idea. One reason that I feel like they might need to draft him is I don't know that the cap situation that this organization have got themselves in, that they can reasonably get Max Crosby or Trey Hendrickson. I'd like them to, but are they going to be gun-shy to do that because they are already so far up against the cap? That's where I feel like, well, I need them to land on it in the draft, because otherwise I'm going to be sitting here again hoping that the $8 million player they sign in March is going to become 5 times better than he was on his previous team. And how often does that happen? It's not that high a likelihood that Michael Hoyt will go from a 6-sack guy in LA to a 20-sack guy with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, free agency, you're projecting, and if you hit on players, then that's great. Like when the Texans went out and drafted Will Anderson and then signed Danielle Hunter.
Or did they trade for him?
They traded up.
Either way,
they drafted him. They traded up in the draft to take him. They traded a future first.
Anderson.
Yeah, Will Anderson.
Yeah.
So they draft Will Anderson, and they signed Danielle Hunter. And they have the best pair of defensive ends in football. It doesn't matter that one was drafted, one was a free agent. You know, you just like, we have the best now. And Hunter was a relatively short but big contract, and you know, it's just a free agent. Go sign that guy. Pay him big money. Is he a steal? No. Hunter's not a steal. Anderson is an absolute steal, of course, because the money you pay him is way less. So, like, if you think about the draft, it just comes down to if you draft well, you get great players for almost no money. That's why the draft picks are important. It's cheap labor, just cheap labor. In free agency, I think it's harder to find steals. And in trades, too. In trades, everybody knows what's going on. You know, how do you find A.J. Brown on this team? Is it worth your second pick? Is A.J. Brown worth the 60th pick in the draft? Definitely. He definitely is. Mm. Is it worth it if you only get 2 years out of it? I mean, you traded a third-round pick for 8 games of Amari Cooper.
That's true.
That's a third-round pick. That's
and a year and a half of Rasul Douglas.
Yeah. Which
2 third-round picks for 2 full seasons of Douglas and Cooper.
Which I don't know that's necessarily a bad trade.
No, I don't mind those moves at all.
Right. It's a balancing act. And, you know, like, listen, we have all the answers, of course. We're here. But whatever. 803-0515. Eric and Elma. Hey, Eric.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. First of all, I love your guys' point about the complaining about the Josh Allen contract. I mean, nobody in Buffalo is complaining about that contract. And you can't live off of the laurels of drafting Josh Allen, but also complain about the contract. But my question is, how do you grade the performance of a GM? How do you, if you put a letter grade to a performance of a GM, I mean, how do you guys assess that? If I'm thinking of, I've been complaining about Brandon Meek for a couple of years to my buddies, and they come back with, well, look at these late-round draft picks he gets. And to me, you don't judge a GM based off of the later round draft picks, because those are so much less valuable than the early round. And you judge a GM more by the value lost and gained in different draft picks. And hitting on a 6th rounder is, not as impressive as, to me, as, when we were failing on these 1st rounders, how, I guess, damaging that is to the Bills. I guess, what is your guys' letter grade to Brandon Beane, and how do you assess?
Thanks, Eric. Like a grade on Beane drafting, average. Fine. Most GMs are about the same at this. Where what's the difference between the Eagles and the Bills drafting? And how much of it is cagey trades to get the Eagles some higher picks? Mm-hmm. If the Bills had last year, instead of signing Rousseau, I don't know, traded him for a second, and then that second turns into something. Like, I don't know. I don't believe that too many GMs are better than others. Sometimes the board falls a certain way. Sometimes you are over-aggressive. Sometimes you're not aggressive enough. I mean, Beane this week said he feels he's sometimes too aggressive, and people have to tell him not to do stuff. But in the draft, he's not been crazy aggressive, I don't think, by anybody's stretch. Like, sure, they move up to get Dalton Kincaid. They move back when they get Keon Coleman. And it's a couple picks here and there. It's not I traded a future first to go up to 13 overall and take a guy. Like that to me is maybe he's wanted to do that, and his personnel people have talked him out of it, which I don't know who was the player for. Who was the move you got talked out of before you? If you could tell me that, I could tell you whether or not not being aggressive is a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that one of the things that I would say the Eagles are far better than the Bills at in the last 5 years and this could be the trades and the picks you make, are, how many great players are you landing in the draft?
A lot. Because
the Bills, one thing they also often complain about, other than Allen's contract, is how they're also always picking so high because they're so good. Did you hear Philadelphia complaining about that last year when they picked 2 first-team All-Pro defensive backs in the 20s and in the 30s? They picked Quinyon Mitchell at 22, and he's a first-team All-Pro. They picked Cooper DeJean in the 30s, and he's a first-team All-Pro safety. When they picked Landon Dickerson in the 30s, 5 years ago, and he's a 3-time Pro Bowler at guard. Like, they got a guy there. Mm-hmm. And then other times, they trade up and get Jalen Carter. Like, they find their way to these players way more often. And when I mean, like these players, the great players. Not guys that are just pretty good. They're okay. They'll make a Pro Bowl if someone doesn't go. Like, no, I'm talking about guys that are at the top of their position. You want to compare them to that team. That team does that all the time, and the Bills haven't done it since McDermott was in charge of the draft.
803-0550, our phone number. Things are good. It's combine. Free agency tampering begins in 10 days. 12 days?
Yeah, I think it's less than that, isn't it?
It's March 9th.
That's free agency or that's tampering?
Tampering.
Okay.
Legal,
okay.
Which basically is the start of free agency.
We find out who's signing where anyway.
It's a week from Monday. Okay. Combine rolls on. Wide receiver interviews today. Wide receiver media today. So we find out if they've met with 1, 2, 3, a bunch. Ryan Talbot reporting they've already met with Omar Cooper Jr. of Indiana, which I've got a note on his scouting report that's something to keep in mind. He played all slot for them this year.
Yeah.
But he's not only a slot. That's how they used him. Maybe he can do more. He's getting a lot of love in the first round, early second. Jeremy and Joe, join us, won't you? Phone number is 716-803-0550 to be a part of the show here on WGR.